The site director was boiling over with rage. This was supposed to be a safe facility, one where low-threat and well-behaved humanoid SCPs were kept with minimal security. But if this kept up, these containment breaches could easily bring the attention of SCP brass, the last thing any of them wanted.
Can anyone explain?
The director demanded, pausing to calm himself.
Why do we have so much trouble keeping this subject safely contained? This is not the first containment breach!
The security team looked at each other nervously. Well, sir, nothing is ever certain. We made sure everyone has the proper security protocols in place, but SCPs are always unpredictable.
It's a little girl!
The director slammed his fist on the table.
Look at these security protocols! Stuffed animals, playtime! This girl is obviously not a threat! So what's going on here?
The security heads exchanged another nervous glance. You're right, sir. The specimen isn't the security threat here. It's the researchers. SCP-2118 was secured by the Foundation with both minimal apprehension as well as a smaller team of personnel, after multiple reports of her unique abilities were identified. She appears to be a normal child under 10 years of age, with orange hair and a long scar on her right cheek. 2118 claims that her scar is the result of an assault by a stranger on the street. She communicated this via sign language, as she rarely, if ever, vocalizes words. She is, however, capable of speech, and that is where her unique abilities lie. SCP-2118 does not speak in her own voice, and it is still unclear as to whether or not she even possesses one. Her speech only activates in one situation, in the presence of a parent who has lost a child under the age of 18 to death. Under this circumstance, only will SCP-2118 begin to speak, but rarely in the same voice twice, because SCP-2118's voice isn't her own. Automatically and involuntarily, 2118's voice pattern becomes that of the child who died, speaking to their parent in a way that reflects both the age and gender of their deceased offspring. The voice that is heard is referred to as SCP-2118-01 by the Foundation. SCP-2118 is aware of her speech and vocal patterns as well as the psychological distress they cause the parent, as she will use sign language to apologize even as SCP-2118-01 continues speaking. But this isn't the only disturbing part of her abilities. While at first the conversation can be generic, most times the words and sounds coming out of SCP-2118's mouth reflects the final words and sounds of the dead child. This not only includes disturbing pleas for help, but can reflect the actual sounds of dying, mimicking the agony of drowning, disease, or death by fire. SCP-2118 wasn't necessarily a danger to anyone. However, her presence could absolutely pose a dangerous temptation. The director finished looking over the files. It seemed like everything had been handled smoothly and by the books when SCP-2118 was initially brought in. But along the way, something had gone wrong. The case was being handled by one of his most trusted researchers, Dr. Wu, as it became clear that SCP-2118 didn't talk normally. Translators who could interpret ASL were brought in for the first interview. Dr. Wu and site psychologist Dr. Lavoie welcomed this strange little girl to the SCP facility. This interview provided the Foundation its first intel on where SCP-2118 had come from. At first, the little girl was alarmed. She didn't like being referred to by her SCP number and insisted on her original name. She understood that she was in a science lab of some sort, but thought she had been brought there because she had done something wrong. She referenced a woman attacking her with her purse at one point, and also claimed that anytime she spoke, people would get angry. But then she revealed something more disturbing. She knew why people got angry when she spoke. From her mother. She had lived with her parent, and at some point her mother had lost a baby. After the traumatic incident, every time 2118 spoke, she spoke in the voice of the sibling she had lost. This caused her mother to become angry, and out of shame, provoked 2118 to glue her own mouth shut to prevent it from happening. Due to the glue being a little too strong, it resulted in a visit to the hospital, something she thought might happen again at the facility. But no one was sure if she was scared of it, or hoping for it. More than anything, the little girl just didn't want people to stop talking to her. The Foundation had a long way to go in understanding SCP-2118's abilities. Dr. Lavoie and Dr. Wu both seemed to have a good rapport with the girl, and they were kept in charge of her case. Neither one had children and could converse with her without difficulty as long as a translator was present. But to test her abilities, there would have to be an experiment conducted involving someone who could actually activate them. And it just so happened that D-3498, a volatile conscript working at the facility, had been convicted of the murder of his wife and his daughter. But the experiment would prove to be more than anyone was bargaining for. As soon as D-3498 was brought in, SCP-2118 became silent. After about 30 seconds, she signed an apology for what was about to happen, and then began screaming at the top of her lungs. She cried out for her father in an anguished voice, all while signing apologies. D-3498 became increasingly angry, demanding to know what was going on. He struggled against his restraints and howled obscenities as he listened to his daughter's strangled pleas for help, begging, and ultimately, her death rattle. 2 agents, recorded as Agent M and Agent C, were brought in to end the experiment and remove D-3498. And that's when things took an unexpected turn. While Agent C removed the D-Class, Agent M seemed oddly fixated on SCP-2118. The reason why became clear as soon as SCP-2118 opened her mouth. "Mama?" The voice had changed completely, to that of a young boy several years older than the D-Class's daughter. The boy seemed distraught, complaining of being cold and scared and wanting to know where his mother was. Agent M seemed frozen in place and didn't answer Dr. Lavoie's questions. The experiment was quickly terminated. SCP-2118 was removed to her living quarters, and Agent M was removed from duty with the case of a possible missing or murdered child referred to police authorities. SCP-2118 may have cracked a cold case, but she also posed a dangerous temptation. It wouldn't be long before the case had its first security breach. Researcher Anselman conducted an interview with SCP-2118, despite not being assigned to the case. Anselman didn't have access to the SCP's living quarters, so he watched SCP-2118 sleep and then communicated with her through the glass. The events were captured on facility cameras and showed that SCP-2118 was agitated from the start, knowing that Anselman was not supposed to be there, and Anselman had an ulterior motive. As soon as the conversation began, SCP-2118, using sign language, asked Anselman why she was being made to do this. Soon afterwards, SCP-2118 started speaking in the voice of a prepubescent boy that Anselman called Dewey, and who referred to Anselman as Dad. The boy was clearly agitated, as was SCP-2118, and asked his father what happens after they die. Anselman became upset, wanting to hear answers from his lost son, not questions. SCP-2118 tried to warn him off, letting Anselman know that he couldn't actually communicate with his son through her, and she couldn't help him. But Anselman persisted, watching as SCP-2118 imitated the sound of a boy gasping and taking his last breaths, consistent with a death from illness rather than accident or violence. All the while, SCP-2118 just watched sadly. The security breach was soon discovered, and researcher Anselman was removed and reprimanded for unauthorized testing with SCP-2118. But thanks to the researcher's breach, the Foundation did gain new knowledge of SCP-2118's abilities, namely that she couldn't actually channel the spirits of the dead. She was a mimic who could involuntarily duplicate their last moments, but couldn't provide any new information from them or answer questions that they didn't know in life, and she didn't have any special knowledge of what came after life. But her abilities did have one unique potential. By channeling the last moments of a deceased child, she could possibly provide answers for authorities as to their whereabouts or their killer, as she had unexpectedly done with Agent M. The problem was, this process seemed to be deeply disturbing for SCP-2118, who showed great emotional distress when forced to channel a dead child and consistently apologized for the effect on the parents, which left the Foundation in an ethical dilemma. "Sir, how do you want to proceed?" The site director looked over the files. Clearly this couldn't continue, and something needed to be done. But none of the security breaches or other incidents had been SCP-2118's fault. She had been cooperative, despite the trauma these tests seemed to cause her. To keep her safe and to preserve her use to the Foundation, things would need to change. We could transfer SCP-2118 to a more secure facility, but I'm not going to do that. Keep herself furnished with all the things a girl her age would want. It says here that she likes orcas and elephants. Take her outside to an enclosed play area once a day for about an hour, no more. But above all, make sure she's always with an attendant who can converse in sign language. She's not to be around anyone who has had children unless it's necessary for testing. Convey these new parameters to Drs. Wu and Lavoie, and make sure to increase security around her quarters, as much for her protection as anything else. The security team scurried off, happy to have avoided the director's wrath. The director turned back to the files. Yes, he had solved the problem for now, but he would have to keep a closer eye on the facility as a whole. The SCP Foundation did close background checks on its staff and on D-Class personnel before bringing them in, but SCPs were unpredictable, and you never knew what could make someone a security risk. How many employees working at the facility had lost a child? How many, like the disgraced researcher Anselman, would do anything to hear their child's voice again, even if it was in the middle of death? For another story of a seemingly harmless child with unusual effects, check out SCP-053 Young Girl, or watch this video instead.